You don't expect to become homeless over a whisper. Not over drugs. Not over crime. Not over failure. Over one word said under your breath. I was 16 years old when my parents opened the front door and told me to leave. No suitcase. No warning. No second chance. Just a school uniform, a backpack, and a can of deodorant. That's all 16 years of childhood was reduced to. The world didn't stop. Cars kept driving. Neighbors kept mowing their lawns. The sun kept shining. But something inside me shut down. Because in that moment, I learned something most people don't learn until adulthood. Home is not always safety. Sometimes it's control. And when you say no for the first time, you find out how conditional love really is. This isn't a story about rebellion. It's not about being a bad kid. It's about what happens when a teenager realizes they are only secure as long as they comply. And what that realization does to a 16-year-old mind. There is a strange moment when you realize you are no longer a child. It doesn't happen on your birthday. It doesn't happen when you get your first job. It happens when the people who are supposed to protect you decide you are inconvenient. I was 16. The argument started over something small. It always does. Schoolwork. Not failing. Not skipping classes. Not drugs. Not crime. Just not good enough. That phrase has a different weight when it comes from strangers. From teachers, it feels like feedback. From parents, it feels like judgment. From your own home, it feels like a verdict. They said I wasn't trying hard enough. They said my effort was lazy. They said I was capable of more in choosing less. I knew my grades were fine. Not perfect. But solid. I worked part-time at a fast food place. I went to school. I went to the gym. I paid for my own phone. I paid for my own phone plan. I was trying. But trying doesn't count when someone else has already decided the narrative. The argument escalated. Not screaming at first. Just tension. That thick, suffocating tension that fills a room before something breaks. I muttered something under my breath. A swear word. Not screamed. Not directed. Just frustration escaping. That was enough. They said they were taking my phone. It wasn't about discipline. It was about control. And for the first time, I pushed back. I said no. I paid for it. I paid the bill. It was mine. The moment I said no, something changed in their faces. It wasn't anger. It was defiance being challenged. That is a dangerous thing in some households. They told me to leave. At first I thought it was a threat. A scare tactic. Then my mom walked toward the door. Then my dad opened it. They didn't pack anything. They didn't hesitate. I walked out wearing my school uniform. My backpack on my shoulder. One can of deodorant inside. That was it. 16 years reduced to fabric and a school bag. The door closed. And in that moment, something inside me split in two. One part of me still believed this was temporary. A lesson. A dramatic punishment. The other part understood something darker. If they could do this once, they could do it again. The first 5 minutes outside felt unreal. It was late afternoon. The sun was still up. Cars were driving by like nothing had happened. The world looked normal. But I wasn't. When you get kicked out, the world doesn't pause. No music swells. No dramatic thunder. Just traffic lights changing. I walked. I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't hurt. But because shock numbs everything. I checked my phone. I had paid for this device. For this number. For this connection to the outside world. And yet I had just been removed from my own home. The irony felt cruel. I called my aunt. She didn't ask questions first. She just said to come over. That sentence alone almost broke me. Come over. Not, what did you do? Not, are you exaggerating? Just come. There is something powerful about someone offering shelter without interrogation. Her house felt different. Quieter. Warmer. But I felt like I was borrowing oxygen. I kept replaying the argument in my head. Maybe I shouldn't have sworn. Maybe I should have just handed the phone over. Maybe I should have apologized faster. But another voice inside me whispered something else. You shouldn't have to beg to stay in your own home. That thought scared me. Because once you start questioning the foundation, everything shakes. I work part-time. I earn about $250 a fortnight. Australian dollars. In this economy, that barely covers survival. Rent? Impossible. Food? Expensive. Transport? Constant. I go to a private school. It sounds privileged. But what people don't see is the pressure attached to it. Fees. Expectations. Comparison. My cousin went to the same school. Even after he got expelled, payments continued, $30 a week toward debt. My aunt said if things got bad, she'd help cover mine the same way. $30 a week. That number became symbolic. It meant someone believed in my future enough to invest in it. Meanwhile, my own parents were willing to cancel my enrollment to make a point. That contrast hurt more than the eviction. I stayed at my aunt's place for a short time. Long enough to feel slightly safe. Long enough to start thinking clearly. Then the messages started. If I didn't come back, they would donate my clothes. Cancel my school enrollment. Cancel my gym membership. Everything I had built outside of them would disappear. Control doesn't always look violent. Sometimes it looks administrative. Paperwork as punishment. I faced a choice. Stay gone and lose stability. Or return and accept conditions. They framed it simply. Face your consequence. Or leave forever. 16 years old. And forever was on the table. I went back. Walking into that house felt different. It didn't feel like home. It felt conditional. They said I could stay. But they would take my phone while I was at home. I'd only have it outside for emergencies. A compromise, they called it. I called it leverage. They had been slightly nicer since. Quieter. Controlled. Mum said she booked therapy for both of us. She said if I attend, I'll get my phone back quicker. I don't want to go. Not because I hate therapy. But because it feels transactional. Healing shouldn't be a bargaining chip. But at 16, survival sometimes means pretending. So I agreed. Not because I was wrong. Not because I suddenly believed I deserved to be thrown out. But because power dynamics don't disappear just because you understand them. Coming back home didn't feel like coming home. It felt like signing a contract I never agreed to. Everything became conditional. My presence. My privacy. My phone. My tone. My effort. There is something deeply unsettling about realizing that love in your house has terms and conditions. While I was outside, I could use my phone. Inside, it disappeared. Not because I was failing. Not because I was dangerous. But because I had said no once. I started noticing small changes in myself. I walked lighter. Spoke less. Measured my words. I analyzed every sentence before saying it. Not out of respect. Out of caution. At 16, your brain is still forming. You're figuring out identity, confidence, independence. But when control becomes the atmosphere, your identity shifts into survival mode. I stopped thinking, who am I becoming? And started thinking, how do I avoid conflict? That is not growth. That is adaptation. There is a difference. At school, I looked normal. Uniform pressed. Backpack on. Assignments submitted. No one knew I had stood outside my own house with nowhere to go. No one knew how quickly safety can disappear. That's the strange thing about teenagers. We can look fine and be breaking silently. When you're kicked out at 16, something changes permanently. You start calculating. How much money do I need to survive alone? How many hours would I have to work? Could I move in with someone? What documents do I need? How do I prepare quietly? You start building a mental escape plan. Not because you want to run, but because you now understand that stability is fragile. I began saving more from my job. $250 a fortnight doesn't sound like much. In Australia, with the cost of living rising constantly, it barely stretches. But I treated every dollar like protection. Protection from dependence. Protection from leverage. Protection from being told to leave again. I stopped spending on small things. Gym became more than fitness. It became discipline. If I couldn't control my environment, I would control my body. If I couldn't control my household, I would control my effort. There's something powerful about lifting weight when your life feels heavy. Iron doesn't argue. It doesn't threaten. It responds to effort. That consistency grounded me. But beneath it all, there was something else forming. Resentment. Not loud. Not explosive. Just quiet. The kind that builds like pressure in a sealed container. Because no matter how much I tried to rationalize it, one fact remained. Parents are supposed to be your safety net. Not the reason you need one. Being told you can stay only if you comply does something subtle to your confidence. You begin questioning yourself constantly. Was I disrespectful? Was I dramatic? Was I ungrateful? Gaslighting doesn't always come in obvious forms. Sometimes it's just repetition. You overreact. You're too sensitive. You made us do this. After enough repetition, doubt grows roots. But here's what I started realizing slowly. A mistake is swearing under your breath. A mistake is not a reason to remove a child from shelter. A mistake is not grounds for emotional exile. The punishment didn't match the action. And deep down, I knew that. Knowing that didn't give me power. But it gave me clarity. My mom struggles with mental health. That complicates everything. Because suddenly, the lines blur between accountability and illness. Between hurt and harm. Between compassion and enabling. I began seeing my household differently. Not as a battlefield. But as a system shaped by unhealed wounds. That doesn't excuse it. But it explains some of it. Therapy was scheduled. I didn't want to go. Not because I feared talking. But because I feared being framed as the problem. Still, I agreed. Because even pretending to engage gave me strategic advantage. And that realization scared me. At 16, I wasn't thinking like a kid. I was thinking like someone negotiating power. When your home becomes unstable, you build quietly. You don't announce it. You don't threaten it. You prepare. I started researching rights for minors. Housing options. Youth support services. I memorized important numbers. I made sure my documents were accessible. Not dramatically. Just responsibly. Because once you've stood outside with nowhere to go, you never forget that feeling. It rewires you. But something else also grew inside me. Independence. Not rebellious independence. Earned independence. I pay my phone bill. I work part-time. I show up to school. I train at the gym. I manage my time. That isn't laziness. That's responsibility. And I began understanding something powerful. If I can survive instability at 16, imagine what I can build at 20. Imagine what I can build when no one controls access to my stability. The argument about schoolwork was never about grades. It was about control. And control only works if you have nothing else. But I do. I have resilience. I have work ethic. I have awareness. And most importantly, I now understand the difference between authority and respect. Authority can kick you out. Respect has to be earned. That night changed me. Not because I was homeless. Not because I lost access to my room. But because I saw the truth. Security given conditionally is not security. It is leverage. But here's what they didn't realize when they closed that door. They didn't make me weaker. They made me aware. Aware of finances. Aware of power dynamics. Aware of emotional manipulation. Aware of my own capability. I am 16. And I already know what instability feels like. That knowledge is painful. But it is also fuel. One day, I will have my own place. My own rules. My own stability. And if I ever have children, they will never wonder if they can come home. Because home will not be a privilege. It will be a promise.